The Hwaseong serial murders in South Korea remained unsolved for nearly 3 decades. The statute of limitations for prosecution expired in 2006, but investigators later identified a suspect. The Hwaseong serial murders took place from 1986 to 1991 in Town, Hwaseong City, Gyeonggi Province, claiming the lives of 10 women. The first case in the Hwaseong serial murders occurred on September 19, 1986. In Annang-ri, Hwaseong, Gyeonggi-do, a 71-year-old woman was found strangled to death. Her pants were also removed. This marked the beginning of a series of murders that terrorized the area. Following this initial case, there were 2 more murders in 1986, 3 in 1987, 2 in 1988, and 1 each in 1990 and 1991. The 10 Hwaseong serial killings lacked a distinct victim profile. Most of the victims, women, were raped and then strangled. Since the last murder in 1991, there haven't been any further related cases. The perpetrator's identity remains a mystery. Notably, the killer used the victim's socks, clothing, or other accessories as murder weapons. Additionally, the presence of various foreign objects in the victims' bodies added to the horrific nature of the crimes. This case's notoriety has led to numerous artistic interpretations. In 1996, director Kim Kwang-lim first adapted it into the stage play Come and See Me. This was followed in 2003 by the critically acclaimed film Memories of Murder, which drew inspiration from real investigation data and interview records. More recently, the 2014 television series Masaki Tomi referenced the case, even adopting Masaki Tomi as the suspect's alias. DNA analysis of semen, blood, and hair collected from the first 5 Hwaseong murders revealed the perpetrator's blood type to be B. Additionally, a survivor who escaped a sexual assault roughly 2 weeks before the 4th murder provided a description of the attacker, a young man, approximately 20 years old, between 165 and 170 centimeters tall with a stocky build. This case became the largest police mobilization in South Korean history. Over 205 officers were assigned consecutively, investigating 21,280 people as suspects and witnesses. Fingerprint analysis identified 40,116 individuals, while an additional 570 underwent genetic testing and 180 had hair samples examined. The investigation resulted in 5 large volumes of case files. In a departure from standard procedure, where case files are destroyed 1 year after the statute of limitations expires, police and prosecutors decided to permanently retain the Hwaseong case records. This decision reflects the case's significance and the public's enduring interest in seeing justice served, even after the appeals deadline passes. This case also spurred the adoption of more advanced investigative techniques. Hair neutron analysis, a first for South Korean investigations, was used in the 8th murder. The 9th and 10th cases involved collaboration with Japan for DNA analysis of the perpetrator's semen, a significant development that marked the early days of DNA identification methods. Hwaseong Police Station's Violence Prevention Team No. 3 took charge of the case, collecting evidence from the crime scene. The enduring public interest in the Hwaseong serial killings was evident in the 2003 film Memories of Murder, which attracted 5 million viewers. With the statute of limitations for appeal in the Hwaseong case nearing its end, the debate surrounding extended limitations for major crimes has reignited. Hwaseong Police Station Chief Choi Won-il emphasized, the investigation will continue regardless of the appeal deadline. Uncovering the truth remains paramount. To that end, a special investigation team will be maintained throughout this period. Some highlights of the case. 1. All the victims were women. 2. The age of the victims varied widely. They ranged from a young woman, unspecified age, to elderly individuals, including a 52-year-old, 7th case, a 69-year-old, 10th case, and a 71-year-old, 1st case. 3. The victims suffered severe genital injuries. For evidence, including semen, hair, cigarette butts, was found at the crime scenes or inside the victims' bodies. 5. Most of the victims were strangled. 6. Eye-sensitive parts were found in the victim's pubic area. They are chopped. Initially dismissed as an isolated murder, the case in Korea took a turn when time yielded no progress on the initial clues. A string of similar killings emerged during the investigation, escalating public concern over a potential serial killer. Despite the police focus on the case, no arrests were made except in the 8th case. The situation further intensified with the suicides of 3 young suspects, aged 7, 9, and 10, and other unexplained events, leading to the now famous phrase the strange Hwaseong story. The 8th case was the only one with a significant lead. Pubic hair found at the crime scene matched that of a convicted prisoner. This evidence secured a life sentence for the perpetrator. However, no clear connection was established to the other unsolved cases. With the exception of the 8th case, the murders remained shrouded in mystery. In 2004, the statute of limitations for murder expired, bringing the investigation to an official end. September 15, 1986, a 71-year-old female farmer was found murdered in a field a day after staying at her daughter's house on September 14. Her lower body was exposed, and her hands and feet were bound with rope in an X formation. Strangulation was determined to be the cause of death. On October 20th, a 25-year-old woman was murdered on her way to the bus stop after an 8 p.m. date. The crime mirrored the previous attack. Though she had 4 stab wounds to the chest, strangulation was determined to be the cause of death. On November 30th, a 45-year-old woman was threatened with a knife from behind by a thug on her way to church at 9 p.m. She was forcibly dragged to the edge of a field, her hands tied behind her with clothes, her mouth gagged with underwear, and her head covered. She was wearing only tight shorts. After the suspect successfully committed the rape, the victim was lucky to escape while the suspect searched her property. The victim managed to flee to the opposite village and was also the only survivor in these 10 cases. On December 12th, a 24-year-old housewife disappeared while taking a bus home at 11 p.m. after having dinner with her husband. Her husband returned to the post office after dinner. Her body was found 131 days later in a rice field, just 50 meters from her home. However, the body was decomposed, with only underwear remaining, and the cause of death was strangulation. On December 14th, a 21-year-old female employee vanished from a bus ride home at 11 p.m., following a blind date at a cafe in Suwon City. 7 days later, her body was found on the edge of a field. Sesame seeds were piled high at the scene, and her hands were bound with a bra. Her head was tightly wrapped in underwear. The cause of death was strangulation. In 1987, on January 10th, an 18-year-old female student took the bus alone after school at 8:50 a.m. She never reached her destination, and her body was found in a field the next day. Her hands were bound, her mouth was stuffed with socks, and she had been strangled with a towel. Her clothing appeared to have been removed and then put back on. On May 2nd, a 29-year-old housewife was found dead while returning home for an umbrella at 11 p.m. after going to pick up her husband. Her upper body was unclothed, and the cause of death was strangulation with a bra. There were also signs of sexual assault. On September 7th, a 54-year-old housewife was killed on her way home at 9:30 p.m. after helping at a canteen run by her eldest son. Her body was found in the grass near the ditch that brought water into the field. Her vagina was stuffed with chopped pieces of peach, her hands were tied with a bra, and her mouth was stuffed with socks and handkerchiefs. The cause of death was strangulation. The crime scene was 29 kilometers from Suwon City, and the bus driver said he could identify the suspect. In 1990, on November 15th, a 14-year-old female student returned home alone after breaking up with her friend in the underground tunnel. At 6:30 p.m., she was raped and killed on the mountain behind a stone materials store. Her body was found by her parents and the police. Her bra had been removed, and there were 2 stab wounds on her chest. Additionally, a ballpoint pen, fork, and spoon were inserted into her vagina. On April 3rd, 1991, a 69-year-old unemployed woman was murdered on her way home around 9 p.m. Her body was found in a pine forest, about 150 meters from her house. She was only partially clothed, only her underwear remained on her lower body. The cause of death was strangulation with a sock. According to police investigation records from over the years, they have released some information about the murderer's identity. The murderer is very familiar with the terrain and surroundings. In the 9th case, he knew very well that there was a gap 150 meters behind the forest. This is a man who has a psychosexual disorder and hates women. The bodies of the raped and murdered women were brutally tortured. Sexual perverts are often calmer than regular criminals and more careful after committing a crime. The murderer was about 20 years old or even older. While murderers can be forceful in subduing their victims and the crimes they commit can be extensive, the focus on sexual organs in this case suggests the perpetrator may have had limited sexual experience. This perpetrator also appears to be persistent and calm. In the 5th case, which occurred in January 1987, the murderer held the victim captive in freezing rain, -15 degrees Celsius, for over an hour before dragging her for 700 meters. This demonstrates the offender's extreme dangerousness, boldness, and daring. Despite a rigorous police investigation, the murderer continued his crimes, often using the victim's belongings as weapons. Notably, the crime scenes were typically very clean. However, at the scene of the 9th crime in November 1990, semen found on the plastic socks used to bind the victim's neck and wrists indicated the offender had blood type B. The statute of limitations for the Hwaseong serial murders expired in April 2006, 11 years ago. This means prosecution for the crimes under the original 15-year limit is no longer possible. However, all case records are meticulously preserved, and the police remain committed to investigating any new leads that may arise. Their determination to apprehend this heinous criminal persists. The cruelty inflicted in this case is unimaginable. What are your thoughts on this horrific crime? Share your comments below. Stay tuned, we'll be back soon with another chilling story.